America is moving through July with pressure building at home and abroad. NATO leaders are gathering in Ankara as Trump pushes allies to spend more and prepares a possible F-35 shift with Turkey. His warning to Iran is raising the risk around energy, diplomacy, and the Strait of Hormuz. Inside the United States, inflation is still shaping the political mood. Walmart is cutting prices after public pressure from the White House, and the Federal Reserve is again talking about the risk of high prices. A dangerous heat wave has tested the largest power grid in the country. The Supreme Court has allowed a Texas App Store age verification law to move forward. And in Memphis, a Trump-backed crime task force is under new scrutiny after National Guard soldiers shot an armed man during a police pursuit. NATO leaders opened the Ankara summit with a clear message for Washington. Europe is trying to prove that it can spend more on its own defense. The timing is not accidental. President Trump has spent years accusing NATO allies of relying too much on the United States. Now the alliance is announcing major arms deals before Trump arrives at the summit. The package includes surveillance drones from the American company Northrop Grumman, new aircraft from Sweden's Saab, and more than $40 billion in anti-drone investments over the next 5 years. The political meaning is just as important as the hardware. European governments want to show that they heard Trump's demands. They also want to reduce the risk that Washington pulls back from NATO's defense plans. The pressure became sharper after the Iran conflict drained U.S. weapons stocks and raised new questions about how much the American defense industry can supply at once. The summit is also opening a sensitive question with Turkey. Trump is expected to support a possible path for Turkey to rejoin the F-35 fighter jet program. Ankara was removed after buying Russia's S-400 air defense system. Returning Turkey to the program would be a major gesture toward President Erdogan, but it would face legal, congressional, and security obstacles. For Washington, the issue is bigger than one weapons sale. It is a test of whether Trump can force allies to pay more while still keeping the alliance under American leadership. Trump's warning to Iran has added new tension to an already fragile diplomatic track. Speaking from the Oval Office, he said the United States would either make a deal with Iran or finish the job. The threat came after indirect U.S.-Iran talks ended without a clear breakthrough. A 60-day ceasefire was supposed to create space for diplomacy after U.S. and Israeli strikes helped trigger the conflict earlier this year. Instead, both sides are still speaking through pressure. Washington wants Iran to stop moving toward a nuclear weapon and to keep energy routes open. Tehran is projecting defiance and warning that threats will be answered. The immediate danger is not only military, it is economic. Any new escalation around Iran can hit oil prices, gasoline costs, and shipping insurance. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most sensitive routes in the global energy system. If ships slow down or insurers raise prices, the impact can move quickly into American inflation data. That is why this issue matters even for people who never follow Middle East diplomacy. A failed deal could mean higher fuel prices, more pressure on the Federal Reserve, and a harder political environment for the White House. Trump says he would rather make a deal, but the language coming from both capitals shows how quickly diplomacy can turn back into confrontation. Inflation is again becoming the center of the economic debate in Washington. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller said the biggest risk facing the Fed is now high inflation because the labor market appears more stable. His comments came after the June jobs report showed weaker hiring but a lower unemployment rate of 4.2%. That leaves the Fed in a difficult position. If it focuses only on the slower hiring numbers, it may look like rates should stay where they are. If it focuses on inflation, the case for another rate hike becomes stronger. The next major test is the June Consumer Price Report, due on July 14th. That number will arrive just before the Fed's July 28th and 29th meeting. Oil has moved back near the levels seen before the Iran conflict, which could help the headline inflation number. But underlying price pressure remains a problem. Services are still growing, supply chains remain strained, and businesses are paying more for key inputs. The services sector expanded in June, but at a slower pace. New orders cooled, and the overall picture looked like an economy that is still growing, but not comfortably. For households, the Fed's decision affects everything from mortgage payments to credit cards. For Trump, inflation is even more dangerous politically. A strong stock market does not cancel the feeling people get when groceries, fuel, and rent stay expensive. Walmart's decision to cut prices on summer barbecue items has become a political story because Trump immediately claimed the retailer acted at his administration's request. The company lowered prices on ground beef, soda, chips, and other holiday staples. 1 pound of its 73% ground beef roll is dropping from $6.74 to $5.94. Trump praised Walmart and urged other retailers to follow its lead. On the surface, this looks like a simple consumer win, but the deeper issue is that food prices remain one of the most painful parts of inflation. Beef prices have been especially high because drought, feed costs, and smaller cattle herds have tightened supply. Economists warn that rebuilding herds can take years. That means one retailer's promotion does not solve the broader problem. It does, however, show how hard the White House is trying to control the inflation message. Trump wants voters to see direct price cuts and connect them to his pressure campaign. Walmart wants to attract shoppers who are hunting for discounts. Families want relief wherever they can find it. The risk for the administration is that a short-term promotion can also remind people why they are angry in the first place. If prices feel too high even after discounts, the political benefit may not last. The cost of living pressure is also showing up in back-to-school shopping. American families are starting earlier this year, trying to catch discounts on backpacks, electronics, clothes, and school supplies before prices move higher. Major retailers including Amazon, Walmart, Target, and Best Buy have already rolled out promotions. This is no longer just a late summer shopping season. It is becoming a long fight for budget-conscious families. A PwC estimate says families are expected to spend about $922 on back-to-school shopping this year, much higher than last year. Part of that increase comes from higher prices tied to fuel, food, and imported goods. Parents are also dealing with a new kind of pressure from children's online trends. Social media is driving demand for specific backpacks, bottles, lunchboxes, and dorm items. More households are allowing children to add products directly to online carts after finding them online. For retailers, that creates a chance to capture spending early. For families, it creates one more battle over budgets. The bigger economic signal is clear. Households are still buying, but they are buying more carefully. They are chasing sales, comparing prices, and shifting between online and in-store shopping. That is not a collapse in consumer demand. It is a sign that many families feel squeezed before the school year even begins. Extreme heat has turned into a test for the American power grid. PJM Interconnection, the largest grid operator in the United States, said emergency conservation measures likely kept electricity demand from breaking an all-time record last week. PJM serves about 67 million people across the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest. On July 2nd, demand reached roughly 162,700 megawatts between 5 and 6 p.m. That was close to the 2006 record of 165,600 megawatts. Without demand response programs, which pay users to reduce electricity use during peak periods, the record may have been broken. The heat dome pushed homes and businesses to run air conditioning for long stretches. Data centers added more stress because they require enormous amounts of power every day, regardless of the weather. This is the new grid problem. Electricity demand is rising at the same time extreme weather is becoming more disruptive. The system avoided a major breakdown, but the warning is hard to miss. Reliability is becoming more expensive. Capacity markets are already seeing higher prices. Consumers may not see the full effect immediately, but those costs can work their way into bills over time. The weekend also brought flooding and storm damage across parts of the Northeast. In New Jersey, heavy rain caused part of a warehouse store roof to collapse. Officials were also investigating possible heat-related cases after days of dangerous temperatures. The country is now dealing with heat, storms, and energy demand as one connected infrastructure problem. The Supreme Court has allowed Texas to enforce a law requiring app stores and developers to verify users' ages and get parental consent for minors. The decision does not end the legal fight, but it allows the law to stay in effect while the case continues. The measure requires accounts for users under 18 to be linked to a parent or guardian. Before a minor downloads an app, the parent must receive information about the app's age rating and approve it. Texas says the law protects children from harmful content, privacy risks, and data exploitation. The tech industry and student groups say it creates a broad speech restriction. Their argument is that forcing age checks for mobile apps is like forcing people to prove their age before entering a bookstore or reading a newspaper. This case is part of a much larger battle over children, smartphones, and social media. States are trying to move faster than Congress. Courts are being asked to decide where child protection ends and censorship begins. The same tension is showing up in the case against Meta. 4 states are seeking $1.4 trillion in penalties over claims that Facebook and Instagram were designed to addict young users and that Meta misled the public about platform safety. Meta denies the allegations and says the penalty demand is unsupported by evidence. The outcome could shape how tech companies design apps for children for years. A shooting in Memphis has put a Trump-backed anti-crime task force under new scrutiny. 2 Tennessee National Guard soldiers assigned to the Memphis Safe Task Force shot an armed man during a police pursuit, according to authorities. The task force combines federal agents, National Guard troops, and local police. It was launched last year as part of the administration's push to fight violent crime in Democratic-led cities. Trump and senior officials visited Memphis in March and praised the operation as a success. The latest incident now raises questions about how these joint operations work on the ground. Police said they responded to a report of shots fired in downtown Memphis and saw a man carrying a handgun. Officers chased him on foot. 2 Guard soldiers nearby joined the pursuit. State investigators said the situation escalated for reasons still under investigation. Memphis police said the suspect turned toward the Guard members with a handgun before they fired. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is reviewing the case at the request of the local district attorney. For the administration, this is politically sensitive. Trump has made federal crime crackdowns part of his law and order message. Supporters say these operations help cities facing serious violence. Critics warn that putting military personnel into local policing situations can create new risks. The facts of this case are still being investigated, but the political argument has already begun. The United States is entering another tense political stretch. Trump is trying to reshape NATO pressure, manage a dangerous Iran track, and claim victories on prices. The Federal Reserve is still watching inflation, while families are looking for discounts before school starts. The power grid has just survived a major heat test. But the warning signs are still there. Courts are moving deeper into the fight over children and technology. Public safety policy is under scrutiny after the Memphis shooting, and Democrats are dealing with a Senate race crisis that could affect control of Congress. The next few days will show which of these stories fade after the holiday weekend and which ones become the main battles of July.